Just as a disclaimer, we want you to know that some of the movies that we will be reviewing were shot in a different time and era where people of race and sex were not treated equally. We understand this and hope you do too. The movies or anything that happened on the sets are not the views of this podcast or what this show is intended to be all about.
Exactly. And we want to give due diligence in presenting the movie and not the views of the cast or directors or anyone involved. But we also feel it's necessary to let the audience know some of the background information to get a feel for what was happening at the time of shooting the film. Again, we hope you understand that we do not agree with everything that went on, and we just want to give out the information. And with that being said, hope you enjoy the show.
There is a podcast that lies between the imagination of two simple-minded earthlings. Travel with these two longtime friends, Jimbo and 80s E, as they attempt to explore the fifth dimension. Follow along with them as they take the key and unlock the door to the vast space between shadow and substance. This podcast is one of trivia, of insight, and of sounds and ideas from one of the greatest television shows ever produced. You are embarking on a timeless journey. There is your signpost up ahead. You are entering the tragedy of cinema's Twilight Zone.
Commonplace, if somewhat grim, unsocial event known as a necktie party. The guest of dishonor, a cowboy named Joe Caswell, just a moment away from a rope, a short dance several feet off the ground. Mr. Joe Caswell, who, when the good Lord passed out a conscience, a heart of feeling for fellow men, must have been out for a beer and missed out.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tragedy of Cinema, the Twilight Zone series. I'm your host, Jimbo, and today, in person, in the studio, is with me, you know him, you love him, 80Z.
Good to be here. 80Z in the house. It's nice to get to do an in-studio podcast.
A face-to-face, and guess what? We're not even wearing masks.
Oh, no.
But we are 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
So, just letting everybody know. Well, 80s, how you been? Good?
Been good.
Healing okay?
Healing okay,
All
yeah.
right. So, we record these usually a couple weeks ahead of time. We've had a nice stockpile, if you will. So Eric had a little minor procedure done, so we're trying to get back on track and get things going again. So everybody, say your good thoughts and prayers for Mr. 80Z as he's recovering. So Eric, here we are, episode 25 of season 1 already. We're trudging right through this. Only about 12 episodes to go, maybe.
Really?
I think it's only 36, 34 an episode or season 1.
More than halfway through. That's good.
Right, so this is Twilight Zone Execution. I know we're going to have a difference of opinion on this one because this is at the bottom feeder, but I'll let you know why towards the end of the episode.
I can't wait.
I know you can't wait because I'm going to about ready to blow your mind with what I dug up, and you're going to be like, oh, no, didn't even know that. So, Eric, let's take it away.
All right, episode number 26 entitled Execution. This is season 1. It was directed by David Oric McDermott. And the teleplay was by Rod Serling. And it was actually based on I believe it was a short story entitled Execution. And the author was George Clayton Johnson. And this original air date for this episode was April the 1st, April Fool's Day, 1960. And the total production costs for this particular episode was $53,149.32. And if we adjust that for inflation, we're looking at $469,692.75. So we're definitely the last several episodes we're in the $50,000 range. So production costs have increased.
Now, do you think that was because of the popularity of the series at the time, and they were getting more viewers, so the corporations gave them more, NBC or whoever gave them more money, CBS gave them more money for their episodes?
That's reasonable to assume that they expanded their budget a little bit, which it kind of seems a little bit confusing, though, in light of season 2 with there being so many videotaped episodes, but I don't know. I don't know. That'd be something that would be interesting to deep dive into. But
I did a little research on that. There is a total of 6 episodes they did on videotape.
okay,
And they were going to try to use it to just film the rest of the series. Like that one of them is Night of the Meek. I think The Living Doll. There's like 6 of them. I know that they did. I believe they're all pretty much all in season 2. But they were trying to see if it would be cheaper if they could get away with doing that instead of doing it the way they had been doing it.
right,
So,
exactly. Yep. Definitely a decrease in quality on those videotape. We've mentioned that several times, but let me just briefly read you the plot of this particular episode. The plot is in 1880. An outlaw cowboy named Joe Caswell is about to be hanged for murder, but as the noose tightens around his neck, he suddenly disappears and finds himself in 1960 in the laboratory of Professor Mannion. Mannion explains that he used a time machine to pluck Caswell from the past, but when Mannion sees Caswell has rope burns around his neck and hears his admission that in his life he had murdered over 20 men, he knows he must try to send Caswell back. The discussion leads to an argument. Caswell attacks Mannion, killing him with a desk lamp. He then flees from the laboratory into a busy street, but is overwhelmed by the lights and the noise. He returns to the lab, distraught and desperate. He breaks down and he pleads with the dead scientist to help him. A thief, named Paul Johnson enters the lab. Caswell fights with Johnson, but Johnson gets the upper hand and strangles Caswell with the cord from the window curtains. And as Johnson tries to find Mannion's safe, he accidentally activates the time machine and is sent back to 1880. Appearing in the noose intended for Caswell, just in time to be hanged. The witnesses to the hanging are shocked to see a stranger's body in strange clothes in the place of Caswell. They question whether this was the devil's work or some other powers, and whether they have just executed an innocent man. So just a brief synopsis.
I think you just told the whole episode right there.
It may have been a little longer than normal, but that's the basic plot of the episode. And Jimbo, did you want to go ahead and take the
let me
cast
get the cast before we just hit the credits and close this one out.
Well, you didn't like it anyway.
Well, yeah, you're about ready to find out. But you had Albert Salmi played, as Eric stated, Joe Caswell. Something about Joe. He played in Escape from Planet of the Apes. Also in Caddyshack, he was Mr. Noonan. And in Dragon Slayer as Grell. But April 25th, 1990, the police were called to a house where there appeared to be a murder-suicide with him and his wife. He was found in the den upstairs, and she was dead on the kitchen floor. They were separated at the time, so it was a murder-suicide. I don't know who shot who. I didn't really dive deep into that.
Okay.
But she was. Her friend looked through the window, saw her on the kitchen floor, and they found him. The police found him upstairs in his den. Russell Johnson, Professor Mannion, obviously the professor from Gilligan's Island, which Eric's about to do a deep dive on that here in a little bit. But yeah, he played a lot of professors in a lot of stuff. He really did. Than Nguyen as Paul Johnson. He played in Splash, the movie Splash. Did you ever see Splash?
I did. That's interesting.
Mr. Ambrose. That's who he played. John Lorimer was the Reverend. He was in... He was John in Creepshow. Do you remember Creepshow? Or sorry, John played in Creepshow. He was Nathan in 1982.
The movie Creepshow.
The movie Creepshow. Yes.
Was there a television series though, the Creepshow as well? Wasn't there? I'm not sure. I have to look that up.
I know Creepshow 2. I know that was a sequel. But then you had George Mitchell played the elderly man. He was in the Dark Shadows TV show. That's a long time ago. Mm-hmm. It was basically a soap opera of, if you will, monsters and vampires and stuff like that. Then you had Faye Roop, or Roopy, as the judge. He was in a lot of westerns. I didn't even write them down. Then you had Richard Carlin as the bartender. And then you had Joe Hallworth as the TV cowboy. So, Eric, you want to go ahead and give us a deep dive there on Russell Johnson?
Sure, yeah, I'll give you a quick, hopefully a little quicker than the plot, but a biopic of Russell David Johnson, as Jimbo mentioned earlier. He's most famously known for playing the professor on Gilligan's Island, and I think he did a good job on. I didn't realize that really didn't run that long. That Gilligan's Island,
three seasons,
three seasons only. But he was born on November 10th, 1924. And he died actually on January 16th, 2014. And his given name is Russell David Johnson. And he's best known for playing the Professor. Long before he was known as the Professor, though, he was in the cult comedy classic, before the cult comedy classic Gilligan's Island. He was a character actor, and he actually worked on a lot of Westerns. He played a villain on a lot of Western TV shows. And unlike his Professor character, Johnson said that he was not a bright student and was in fact held back a grade. Johnson did redeem himself later, though, in his high school years, and he made up for it by being inducted into the National Honor Society. And he was... again, originally best known for playing character villains, but that changed in 1964. He was married 3 times, 1 divorce, and he was a widower, 1 time, and then his final marriage was to a lady named Constance Dane, and that was from May 18th of 1982 to January 16th, 2014, obviously, at his death. Some other interesting things about Russell Johnson was that during World War II, he enlisted to become an aviation cadet and rose to the officer's rank of first lieutenant under the service number 765497. He flew as a bombardier in a B-25 aircraft on a total of 44 combat missions over the Netherlands and East Indies and in the Philippines. So here's another World War II veteran to join the cast of the Twilight Zone. There were a lot of those. I didn't know this, he was known for narrating the long-running anime series, for all you anime fans, called Robotech in 1985. And with the death of Bob Denver from Gilligan's Island on September 2nd, 2005, he was the last surviving male cast member of the Gilligan's Island. And I think Tina Louise might be the only surviving cast member today. I believe she's alive, because Dawn Wells just passed away.
She just died.
And again, just to reiterate, he was best known for his role as Roy Hinckley, the Professor on Gilligan's Island. And I actually watched a YouTube, just as a side note, it was interesting. The way he got that job, he actually knew somebody. I believe it was CBS, was the network. He had a friend who worked in the production or something, who put together the videos for screen testing and so forth. And his buddy kind of hooked him up because he put him in between 2 horribly screen-tested actors, and he stuck Russell Johnson's, video in the middle, and so, he looked so good in between those 2 bad guys. So it just goes to show you that if you got friends in the business, it helps. But I thought that was interesting that he had a hookup there at the network to get him that job in Gilligan's Island. Twice he starred in the Twilight Zone. He's also in another episode, and both of the episodes that he is in both involve time travel stories.
Is he a professor in the other one too?
No, I think he's what's the name of that episode? I believe he's like a senator or a congressman, and he walks through a door and, well, I don't want to give it all away.
We'll save it
he's
for that
basically
episode.
trying to thwart the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. He goes back to 1865 and comes into contact with John Wilkes Booth, etc. But we'll get to that one. I believe that's in season 2. And that's pretty much it on Russell Johnson. A little biopic of his life and career.
All right, so let's start talking a little bit about this episode, and then we'll see what you think.
Okay.
So obviously we start off at a lonely tree with a noose hanging, a guy strapped to a noose on a horse. You got the guy on the hill who is the father of the person that Mr. Caswell has said that he shot in self-defense, where he told him he shot him in the back. Then the judge and all them, hey, you got anything to say for you? He's like, pretty much no. So then,
I thought the dialogue here was really good. I thought the exchange was good. I got a little bit of trivia about some things that they wanted to take out. The network wanted to take out. I can't remember what he says. They wanted him to replace. Let me just read it here. Sorry to interrupt, Jimbo. Among them, the opening scene in which Caswell referred to the Bible as that book. CBS requested that Serling change the speech to substitute their concern with your preaching. So apparently that book was supposed to be replaced with your preaching, but Serling made no change.
Serling did that a lot.
He held his ground a lot of times.
Yeah.
I thought this exchange was, the dialogue was pretty. It was very somber. I thought it was done pretty well.
So then this is where you have the special effects playing because they slap the horse or whatever, and you see the shadow of the noose on the ground, the guy hanging, and then you look again and there's nobody there, and they're like, "Where'd he go?" Yeah, whoa, what just happened? So the next thing you see, I do believe you are in the professor's, I guess I'll call it a laboratory for the, I guess, apartment, if you will. Mm-hmm. If you want to take it away from there.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to comment on, I guess for the stunt, Albert Salmi, he was only like a foot and a half to 2 feet off the ground. He just basically grabbed the rope in that hanging scene, the necktie party, if you will, and he was only hanging like a foot or foot and a half when they shot the actual shot of the hanging or whatever. But I guess he could only do 2 takes, and he was too tired that he couldn't hold on to the rope.
Well, yeah, he's a bigger guy, man. That's like me trying to hang from the ceiling fan here. I couldn't stand up that far.
That was kind of funny that he, I guess there was, I think it was in the Twilight Zone Companion, or one of the books we reference often. It was he stated that I was like too tired that I couldn't do it more than 2 times.
Well, you got to remember they only they usually shot these, and they had like a day of rehearsal or 2 days of rehearsal,
right.
and then they shoot.
Yeah.
So
yeah, going along in the episode, you said you're in the laboratory of Professor Mannion, and Caswell starts to come to, and his voice is really raspy. And he's
wanting to know where he is.
Yeah, he says, "Where am I?" He has a real raspy, guttural voice.
That's pretty good.
And he's asking, Professor Mannion, and Professor Mannion goes on and tries to explain that he's a long way from home, and that he's been transported in 100 years later, and that he was in a time machine, and of course, all of these things. I mean, he's really, Caswell comes across. I mean, someone from that era obviously couldn't understand what was happening. The explanation of a time machine, things were really more complex than what he was used to being, like a cattle rancher or whatever he was in his previous life. So, he struggles to come to terms with everything that's going on. And
well, especially when he tells him that, hey, there's carriages outside without any horses.
Right,
you know what I mean? But
his mind,
horsepower, if you will. But
yeah, exactly. He just can't really wrap his mind around what's taking place. Right.
So I believe is this where he passes out from the pain or something? He goes to sleep or something, remember?
I think he goes to the other room, and Professor Mannion sort of encourages him to go to sleep in another room. He's very tired.
But is this where he notices the neck?
Yeah, he's examining. Before he does that, before he sends him, he sees the neck wounds and the burns on his neck. And then basically, I mean, Caswell is pretty forthcoming with, well, that comes later. Professor Mannion has some
suspicions, I guess.
Suspicions would be a good word.
Like who I brought here?
Right. And let's just park here for a second. It's kind of interesting and maybe a little bit cavalier for somebody to pluck somebody out of a different time. And I mean, the repercussions of doing that, I don't think Professor Mannion really even thought about that.
But why?
What if you for example, what if you plucked somebody that was integral in history?
That's what I said. Well,
and then you brought them to the future, and how dangerous that would be.
Well, think about it this way too. What if you plucked Abraham Lincoln out of the box right before he got shot, and you bring him as he was the president of the United States to this timeline?
Right.
What's going to happen to history?
Could be, disastrous effects.
That's what I'm saying. What if Mannion would have time traveled one of his relatives? He would have never been there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it would have altered. We've learned from Back to the Future and all these other time travelers, so that if you mess up something in the past, it affects the future with Biff and everything else. McFly, his mom and dad. You know what I mean? So if he would have plucked somebody that was part of, his family heritage,
right?
What would have happened?
An integral to, a great historical figure. I wrote this down. Most of us probably are familiar with the movie Jurassic Park. Ian Malcolm, the character in Jurassic Park, he uses a line that really fits here. It says, the line, he says, they were so preoccupied with whether they could, speaking about the dinosaur creation and, all that stuff. They were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to ask whether they should. And I think that really applies here to Professor Mannion. He really didn't. He was only concerned about whether he could do that, and he really didn't consider any of the ramifications or the ethics of whether he should bring someone forward in the future. So that was just a little side note.
Yeah, I guess.
You guess you don't look impressed.
No, it was terrible. I hate this episode, and,
All right.
and I'm getting ready to get to the continuity part that I just don't understand.
Okay.
And we'll get there. Well,
we'll let you get there.
I'll get there. I'll get there.
At this point, Professor Mannion, he has an old style, what's called a dictaphone, which was used by, professors, doctors, etc., back in the early 60s, and it's a recording device. And right here, we're going to give a small clip of the episode. And Professor Mannion, let me just set it up maybe a little bit. He's kind of giving his characterization and some of his findings of what he has discovered about his subject, as he is really, it's just a description of Caswell here in the next few moments.
At 8:15, the subject appeared, desperately tired. So I put him to bed. After 2 hours, I've discovered the following. His name is Joseph Caswell. He tells me he was a trail boss on a cattle ranch in the territory of Montana. He says he was riding herd when suddenly he blacked out. He awoke to find himself on the cot of my laboratory. There's one disturbing point. There are the marks of a rope etched deeply into his neck. He has no explanation for this. And I have one other observation. It's hardly scientific. I don't like his looks. I get a feeling that I've taken a 19th century primitive and placed him in a 20th century jungle. And heaven help whoever gets in his way.
All right, so there you have Professor Mannion's dictation into the kind of person that he believes that he brought back to him and the questions that he had. So now you have old Mr. Caswell wake up from his slumber or whatever, and he comes walking back in to talk to the professor. And this is where he explains to him, said, hey, look, he's like, outside here, you're going to find carriages with no horses. And he's like, you lie, blah, blah, blah. He's like, you're going to see things that isn't going to make much sense to you. And here's one of the first things that I have a problem with. So he goes over to the window, right? And he's like, oh, it's so loud. It's loud. He doesn't even have the window open. Okay, come on. I mean, you're used to...
We don't know that.
Yes, you
can't
do.
tell that it's not
It's not open because when he goes through it later in the episode, it's still closed.
But okay.
So don't
I'll have to
tell
go
me.
back and rewatch
Right,
that.
you will. Because my thing is, this guy is from the Old West where you had horses running through town, you had wagons and all that. It's making noise too.
But not the same noise as a busy street in a major metropolitan city.
Disagree, but he's also inside. Okay. They didn't have all this nice furnishings and padding and insulation.
I'm right here, and it looks to me like the window might be open.
No, it's not.
All right. Well, go ahead.
Because from what's getting ready to happen here in this scene, nothing changes.
Okay.
Until later in you know what I'm talking about now?
It looks closed now.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I thought so. So go ahead, take it away from there.
No, duly noted.
No, keep going. I've got more.
That's a small continuity.
Oh no, I've got.
I agree.
No, that's not the one I'm talking about. Just keep going. I've got a better one.
Okay, so it looks as though Caswell, again, just to reiterate, is distressed. He's the noise, maybe the fact that he's high up in a high-rise building, because probably back in the Old West there was no building that was maybe over 2 stories or 3 stories, right? The saloon that had the the rooms above it, etc. I'm just
you're trying to make up something. I get you.
Just imagining Old West movies. But anyway, he's in a high-rise building.
But if he's that high up, then the noise wouldn't be as loud either.
That's true. I'm not discounting the continuity here. Okay,
that's not even the continuity error. Okay. I agree with. I understand. It may be a little loud, honking the horns. If you're in New York, wherever they're at, I think it's New York. Right. Honk. The taxis, all them crazy people. But go ahead.
No,
not saying the taxi people are crazy. I'm just saying, there's a lot of people crammed into a small space there in New York. Let's say New York City, right. If that's where they're at.
So maybe that causes a little bit of dizziness, leaning over, the noise. Okay, we can. That's a small thing to argue back, but so as they move away, I mean, really, the essence that Albert Salmi played as Caswell, I do feel like he played a really good part, which he actually wasn't the original person to play Caswell. Another actor, and his name slips my mind, he actually got sick on the day of, was it either pre-production or the actual day of filming, and so they replaced him kind of last minute with Salmi. But I thought he played a reasonable outlaw. He seems he really does convey evil, and he's forthright in telling Mannion, like, look, I really just thought the dialogue was really good here, the way it was written. Like, they're talking about justice. By the way, this, some people talk about the Twilight Zone justice, in quotes, the people who are supposed to get what's coming to them get it, and the people that you think might deserve justice, they kind of get mercy a little bit, and that's all issued by this Twilight Zone. They call it Twilight Zone justice. But anyway, I think that might be reading a little bit into it. But here, Caswell is evil. It's obvious that he's evil. He's killed these men. And there is a back and forth where Mannion, talks about, well, we have laws, we have justice, we have things that are, that are laid down that men have to apply to their philosophies in life. That law and order, and I'm not going to be able to quote it verbatim. And Caswell takes exception to that, and he says, look, if it becomes, if it's cold and I'm on the trail and it becomes between me and another guy and a loaf of bread, I'm going to do whatever it takes, basically, to get what I need. I'm going to get what I get, and, forget the justice part of it. I'm going to do what I feel is just, and basically kind of dismissively are very dismissive about his killing of all the men that, that he's murdered. And so then he proceeds to lean over the desk and take the lamp, and he crushes the skull of Professor Mannion, killing him with the lamp. And Jimbo, did you want to have anything that you want to? Oh, I thought this was
not
when
yet.
You were interjecting.
No, we're getting ready to come up on it. I'll let you know.
Continuity error. And I might not have done a good job of describing that scene, but I do think obviously, hopefully, you've watched the episode before you come to the podcast. I do think the dialogue there is pretty good. It's talking about philosophical things, and right versus wrong, and justice versus injustice, and he talks about the sheriff whipping Justice into his back with a wet rope, and
you know what, and that's what I told you, where I think that he's more Quasimodo than he is an outlaw person. All the references like that too, you know what I mean? And just maybe it's his outfit he's wearing, I don't know, but he, and his hair is just all disheveled. He kind of reminded me of Quasimodo from Hunchback of Notre Dame, if you've ever seen like one of the old movies of that. I just don't know if I like the outfit that he's wearing. He's wearing all black, I do believe.
Well,
and I understand his symbolism. Yeah, I get it. But it just didn't do nothing for me.
I got you.
All right,
okay, that's fair enough.
Keep going. We're still not there.
It's like, hurry up, get this thing over with. This is the part that I will concede is corny, where he's on the street and he's stumbling around and he's bumping into people. It's like he can't walk. I mean, this is over the top for
it's
me.
Like he's disheveled from his hearing because he's holding his ears like it's all the noise.
Exactly, and he's stumbling around. He runs into the middle of the street, and then why do they use? I don't know if this was like a thing with the Twilight Zone, but actually in Where Is Everybody in the first episode, there was a phone booth.
He goes
and he gets into the phone booth because he hears the operator on the other end, and he accidentally locks himself in the phone booth. And then his solution is to smash his way out through the... I thought that was... I will concede that. It was really corny. This whole interlude of him on the street, and then the bar scene, and then he's smashing the jukebox, and then smashing the TV.
Well, we need to get there. So we go to this little ice cream shop, right? Is that where he's at? Like a restaurant?
It's a bar.
Whatever. The same difference.
I think. They serve him alcohol.
Right.
He serves him whiskey.
Well, he serves himself a whole bottle.
Right.
So, okay, here we go. Are you ready?
Well, I'm just saying, one last comment. This is hokey. It's corny. It doesn't fit into the episode, I don't think. It seems kind of unnecessary. Like they could have done something with this particular part.
But I think from the time that he opened that window till what's going to happen from here on out, all plays an integral role. And we'll get ready to dive into it.
Go ahead.
So we go into the bar.
Uh-huh.
And the bartender, and the music's playing, and he just takes that chair and just bashes in the whole jukebox.
No reason.
Because it's making noise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's never seen one. Okay. Fine. Whatever. I'm fine with that. So then he goes over to the bartender, and he's like, "Hey, I need."
Sets his gun on.
Says, he's like, "I need whiskey or something."
Yeah.
And the bartender's like, "Well, you're gonna pay for that, buddy." And he sets the gun up there. You know what I mean? He's like, "Oh, here, have a whole bottle." And he tries to get the lid off. And he takes the lid off, and he just starts drinking the thing. And this is the him and the bartender are having this conversation, and he looks up and he's like, "Oh," he's like, "You've never seen this before? Let me give you a little demonstration." And wouldn't you know, of the millions of airtime and the all the 3 channels they had, the exact moment that they turn on the TV happens to be a cowboy looking at the TV screen saying, "All right, partner, it's your turn to draw. You better do it soon," or whatever. And so the guy picks up the gun, shoots the TV, and here's where things start going downhill for me right away.
Okay. This
is the exact moment. So the bartender says, "Oh, okay, here, take these 2 drinks. You need to just go home and you need to go sleep it off, whatever." Mm-hmm. And he's like, that was before he shot the TV. So he shoots the TV and the guy's like, "Oh, now you've done it, buddy. Police, police." He starts yelling for the police. Okay, so
I think I know.
Unless there's no, you don't. So there's no police in earshot. Okay, that we know of. So here's the moment that I've been wanting to. He goes out the thing, and he starts running, and there's like a theater behind him, mm-hmm. right? And he's looking around. He goes out into the middle of the street. A taxi cab pulls up. He turns around with his gun and shoots the taxi cab driver. Kills him.
Yeah.
Right there.
Right.
What's he do? He crumbles up into a ball on the middle of the street. The next thing you see, he's back in the apartment.
Right.
Number one, if there was a police run, you can hear the sirens in the episode. There is a million people standing all around, and this big baby is crawled up into a ball. You want me to believe that this big bad guy is crumbled into a ball in the middle of the street?
You're really worked up about
Oh, this is where, because I don't understand. If you have all these witnesses, security, even if me and you seen somebody getting shot out here on the street, okay, we would do our best to go out there and stop the perpetrator. If the perpetrator is crumpled into the middle of the street, we're going to go set on him. I mean, I will. I'm a big enough guy. But what I'm saying is you had this whole crowd of people. This guy's in the middle of the street. There's sirens coming. So the cops have to be a block or 2 away because you can hear them. Mm-hmm. Why and how, number one, did he get back to the office or to the apartment? Mm-hmm. He may have not known which way he was going to begin with. And if he is as disoriented as he portrays throughout the entire episode from the point that he leaves or from the point he opens the window till now, there is no way that he would have made it back to the thing, or there is no way that nobody would have stopped him. I rest my case, Your Honor. Drop the microphone. Go ahead, take it over.
You make a very passionate argument. I can't really...
But see, that's the continuity part.
I can't dispute that.
How did he get back to the apartment?
We don't know. Obviously, because there's a cutaway. Is that a commercial cutaway?
I don't know.
No, it's just kind of a fade out, and then he's back in the apartment.
But then I start thinking, is this guy dreaming all this? And I don't think so.
No, and I'll just go back a little bit earlier. A lamp over the head, a glass lamp, it could potentially kill you.
It's definitely going to knock you out for sure.
But I digress. But
do you understand why I get so upset?
Yeah, well,
because especially if the guy is yelling for police,
yeah,
and then you hear sirens, obviously somebody heard him because he didn't pick up the phone and call them,
right? Unless the call was for someone else.
Still, but if you got gunshots and the guy in the taxi cab, you watch the episode, the guy in the taxi cab falls over dead. They're going to be like, it's that guy right there. And then my point is, if he's in the middle of the street, if you look, he's in the middle of the street.
Got you. Duly noted. This episode in particular
is trash. Go ahead.
There's a lot of violence in this episode.
Very much violence.
For a time and place where you couldn't show 2 married couples in the same bed. Or even the Alfred Hitchcock was the movie Psycho came out around this time, 1959, 1960, and they couldn't even get a toilet on the movies. And for this much violence and gun violence too, it's a very violent episode, and that's what takes me to the next scene where, well, we've come through the scene that Jimbo very eloquently,
passionately
described for us. So we're back into the apartment / science
How we got there, we don't know.
We don't know.
And we don't know why a million people didn't say, "Officer, this is all these witnesses," because if you look at the street, there's like 40 people.
We'll leave that to TV magic. And so we're back in.
we'll just say that. But here's what I heard. Something else I was thinking before you go ahead and go on. No, just real quick. Because no. This is something that you'll be able to respond to. Do you think that moment is where the policeman was supposedly shot him in the alternate ending? And that's why he crumples in the street right there.
We're going to get to that.
That's what I'm saying. Do you think that would be the moment that would have happened?
Probably. But Serling rewrote the ending. Yeah,
Right.
you're correct. That's a good point. That was a very possible explanation as to where the episode might have turned or ended, in fact. So, where are we? We're back in the lab. Don't know how we got there. We've talked about that. And then we encounter our thief, I guess. His name is Paul Johnson. And he comes in and he confronts Caswell and he tells him, I thought the place would be empty or the guy or the professor would be asleep. And they kind of have an exchange of words. And
yeah, he's like, you're here. I'm sure you're looking for the same thing I'm looking for, because he thought he was another thief breaking in to steal something. He's like, they got a vault or a safe here somewhere. You know what I mean? So he's going to search the joint. And he basically
says, hey, thanks for finishing the job for me. And they get into a scuffle, and a fist fight ensues. And then it's so ironic, the irony here that Caswell escaped the necktie party only to be strangled by another criminal using a curtain blind cord to take his life. So he ends up getting strangled anyway by another criminal.
But you skipped over the most major part of this thing that we were talking about. When they get in their fist fight or whatever, he shoves Caswell through the glass, the window. He shoves him through the glass. The glass breaks.
Yeah.
Okay, so then he wraps the cord around his neck or whatever. Right. So the window was shut.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we pointed that out.
On that earlier.
No. You were still on the fence, but I want to say
sure. But now that I agree. It was closed.
So now we're coming down to the ending.
Let's not let the irony be lost on. I mean that's kind of the twist here.
That's poetic justice that Caswell ended up getting hung anyway.
Yeah, and it is the kind of the twist kind of comes later. As Paul Johnson, he kind of is fumbling around the laboratory, and he's looking for that safe, as you mentioned earlier, and he's trying to get and gather any kind of valuables that he can gather, and he happens to stumble his way into the time machine, which the time machine, the globe,
and the door automatically closes on him.
I'm with you on that. That's a little.
How's it
and he
didn't push any buttons or anything, you know what I mean?
And he can't get out, and he can't open it. Again, that's kind of I remember that part, but as we've often referenced, this prop was, of course,
a lot of the props were from Forbidden Planet.
Were from Forbidden Planet, of course, and where am I? Paul Johnson
is in the time machine. Lights are going off.
The lights are going off. The door comes down. He can't get out, and then he is instantly transported back to the same exact time that Caswell left, and he is on the end of the hangman's noose.
You see the shadow on the ground, and you look up and you see the dress shoes and the dress pants of the character, and they're all standing around like, what just happened? You know what I mean?
Did we the Reverend and was he like a judge that was standing with him?
The judge
said, did we kill
execute
an innocent man?
Which luckily they didn't. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe he was a petty thief, but he was going there to murder the
he was a
professor.
Too.
Right. So
he went through.
So basically, he got his justice too. But then again, here's where we do the whole time travel thing with him going back in time. Does that alternate the timeline of his family in the future? Did he have wife? Did he have a kid? You know what I mean? You don't know.
We don't know. Yep.
So a couple little things before we get going, or keep
got
going.
Some trivia over there.
Yeah, let me pull up this sheet of paper.
I just have one question and observation. I'll just throw at you because the rest of my questions and observations were sort of covered throughout the episode. Do you think Joe Caswell got the justice that he deserved? That was the one question that I came away with.
Or did he get? I guess I'd call it poetic justice.
Yeah, I think that's a good word.
Because yes, he did murder somebody in the past, but it was just as much professors. Did the professor get his just desserts from transporting somebody that he shouldn't have messed with to begin with?
Right.
I would say eventually, yeah. I guess
I think justice was served on all parties.
But the problem is, you don't know the one problem I have with that is the father of the boy that he was shot in the back that they were going to execute him for. He will never know. He's not going to know. They don't know what happened to Mr. Caswell.
Right. And the alternate ending is in the George Clayton Johnson version. The ending is that Caswell gets shot by the police officer. Jimbo mentioned that earlier. and that he actually ends up back in the Old West. But I think Rod Serling thought the continuity of that really didn't match up. Like, you get shot by a police officer and then you just automatically end up. That didn't really. He didn't like that idea, so he rewrote the ending. I like Serling's ending better. It makes more sense that he gets into the time machine and goes back to that exact point, because I mean that would have been the exact point that he left, and if nothing had changed from Mannion's settings to bring Caswell to 1960, that would make sense that he would go right back, that Johnson would go right back. But the fact that he couldn't get out and that he was trapped in the glass structure and all that.
But my thing is, okay, here's two things. One, when Caswell came, the professor had to get him out, right, out of the time machine.
Right.
The door didn't shut on him when he got him out, right? Number two, when he found out, you started seeing the neck rope burns, and the guy's passed out, and you're starting to question yourself, who did I bring? And you know the rope burns, and he's dressed like a cowboy. I would have probably just put him right back in the time machine and shifted that thing back to where he came from.
Yeah. But
who knows? It's two negatives make a positive because they both ended up dying. I guess, if you want to look at it that way, two negatives didn't make a positive. But so much of the equipment, like we said, the dials, the machinery, and even the large transparent globe was also used in Forbidden Planet in 1956, which you're in luck. By the time you hear this, our episode of Forbidden Planet with Mr. 80Z will be out, because we're getting ready to sit down and record that right after this.
Boo.
Satellite in the Sky in 1956 and World Without End in 1956. We talked about the telephone booth already. This episode takes place on November 14th, 1880, and in 1960. The background noises heard in the time machine were later reused in Star Trek, the original series, from 1966. They were previously heard in the Twilight Zone Third from the Sun, again, and the Twilight Zone Elegy, which we've already covered both of those. So they really use a lot of the same props. They get the most out of their props. Like Hitchcock used to shift them between Hitchcock Presents and his movies and stuff like that. Yep. So that's all right. Albert Salmi appeared in the Twilight Zone Execution, the Twilight Zone Equality and Mercy in 1961, and the Twilight Zone of Late, I Think of Cliffordville in 1963, all which involve time travel. In Execution and Cliffordville, his characters are very unlikable, although that is not the case in the episode Quality. And when Caswell leaves the bar, he stops in front of a place called Jim Henry's Paradise. The same sign was used in Cabin in the Sky in 1943. Mr. 80Z, give me your observations and expertise on this episode. Like it, dislike it? Top tenner.
I thought the story was it was okay. It was okay. Again, I wouldn't put it in a top 10. It didn't crack the top 10. You say it's lower tier, near the bottom of all the episodes. I wouldn't put it that low. I think that's being a little bit extreme. I think the story, other than the middle parts that I explained earlier, the middle it's nonsensical when he's stumbling around in the street. I wish they could have. I don't know I never read the short story of the book, so I don't know how that follows the exact storyline. I thought it was kind of corny and dumb. But, again, I'm more favorable to anything time travel. I just, I think I give it more of a break whenever there's time travel involved in a story. I like the stories about time travel. The performances weren't terrible. Again, Russell Johnson and Albert Salmi, I thought they did a fairly decent job. Some of the other actors, maybe not so much, and I thought the preacher and the judge, I thought they did a fair job. I thought really, I guess what sticks out the most is I thought the dialogue was good,
well written.
Yeah, and well written, exactly. And so I would put it mid tier. How many 36 episodes in season 1? I would probably put it at right where it's at. Maybe it's episode 26. I'd probably put it at number 26.
So you're definitely saying it's lower tier.
Yeah, it would be in the bottom half, bottom quarter.
Yeah. For me, I mean, we've only got 10 episodes left, and I know there's at least one or two coming up that I really dislike. So if you thought I was harsh on this one, you're going to see something. Maybe even next week.
We're going to team up to talk about some really bad ones.
But just the whole, when you sit back and as you do a podcast, you watch this show several times. And usually, you can change your mind about an episode the more you watch it. I know, Mirror Image, you changed your mind on that one. Perchance the Gene, we came around on that because we had to record that one 5 times because of some audio issues, right? And watch out for my spit as I spit halfway across the room. it's just this one. I kept waiting for it to get better and get better and get better, and every time I did, it would point to something else being wrong. And that continuity error, that's one thing that I just don't understand. Maybe I'm being too harsh on it, but I just think as disoriented as he was in a city he does not know, with people he does not know, and they're not going to be. He does have no identification on him to say, "Hey, I live at this address." I have a problem with that. How he came from a crumpled piece in the middle of the street back to the apartment, and you could tell there was like some time skippage or something. So maybe they took something out there. Maybe this is where Sterling said we shot this, but if that's the case, he never got shot by the police officer. So there's no reason for him to be crumpled in the middle of the street right there. So I really have a problem with that. To me, this is probably, and I know the other two definitely that might be below this, but this is probably the third one at the lowest end of the season one for me. And we've seen a lot of stuff. Just because I didn't like Caswell's acting. I guess the clothing. I understand they're trying to distinguish that he's a cowboy.
He didn't have traditional cowboy attire,
right? And the whole we're going to turn on this TV and there's a cowboy on there getting ready to draw at you.
It was hokey.
It was. I mean, I just couldn't. I didn't care for it. I really didn't. I'm trying to be nice about it, but you know what I mean? Because I know you like this one, so I'm trying to be favorable for this. But I mean, as a fan of the Twilight Zone, I like it because it's a Twilight Zone,
right?
But it's not one of my favorites.
Gotcha.
Poorly done. But other than that, well written. I just wish that whole, like you said, the whole middle screen or middle from the time he left the thing. And here's another thing: if he's on a high-rise apartment, who's to say he wouldn't have just walked out the window or something? You know what I mean? How would he know to get down to the bottom? You know what I mean? I mean, it's probably the tallest building he's ever seen. Mm-hmm. But I digress. I could be here all day just chomping away at it. So I might as well just get rid of this one.
Just leave it alone.
Chalk this up to an L. Yeah, execute it. I'm going to execute it so it's over. But there you have it. That is episode 25. Man, 25 already. Man, we are just tearing through these.
Is that 25 or 26? I have 26. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, that's 25.
Is it 25?
I do believe so. Double check, but I believe.
My apologies if I wrote 26.
Yeah, I believe it's 25. So with that being said, I think this episode's coming to a close. And Eric, you're here in person. Take it away.
And cut.
This is November 1880, the aftermath of a necktie party. The victim's name, Paul Johnson, a minor league criminal and the taker of another human life. No comment on his death save this: justice can span years. Retribution is not subject to a calendar. Tonight's case in point, in the Twilight Zone.